This is Ministry Conversations. Join us as we sit down with ministry experts from across Texas Baptist life and answer practical questions for effective ministry. We want to help your church fulfill the Great Commission fueled by the Great Commandment.
Welcome you guys to Ministry Conversations. My name is Clay Jacobson. I'm the director of the Cooperative Program. The Cooperative Program is how our churches pull resources to support the work that we do here at Texas Baptist, the ministries, the missions that we're involved in. And so this is our first episode trying this out.
Wow.
And
you chose
yes.
well.
Yeah, you did. Go
First
team,
and not
right?
second.
Discipleship
Yeah,
is where
yeah.
it is.
That's right. I've got like 3 weeks and 2 days under my belt, so you started at the top. Way to go.
It's a great way to start out,
Hey.
yeah.
Sink or
Yeah.
swim.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Why don't we start with just introducing each other?
Yeah.
I've introduced myself. Kurt.
Got it. I'm Krodle. I'm the new youth ministry specialist on the discipleship and NextGen team.
Awesome.
I'm Jennifer Howington. I'm the, Associate Director of Discipleship NextGen and the Childhood Ministry Specialist. So longest title here at Texas Baptist, and it fits on my
Well
business
done.
card. So
And you remembered it.
I did.
And your
So,
name tag
good
too,
job.
right?
Lots
I
of
mean,
practice. And my name
2
tag.
name tags.
It fits on both.
Yeah, okay. Just one. Okay.
Actually,
Okay,
one.
good.
Well, thank you for joining us here today. So what's y'all's favorite and weird or weirdest experience just in the ministries y'all have? Y'all have had some pretty good ministry experience, and so
Do you have one?
Gosh. I mean, again, the weird. I'm like,
I have
Oh.
I have a lot I cannot say.
I have a funny
That's what-
baptism story.
okay.
So I had this child that I, sharing the gospel with, and he was so excited. He accepted Christ, wanted to be baptized the next Sunday, and so his parents called and said, he really wants to wear his goggles when he gets baptized. Is that okay?
That's a good call.
And I'm like, I don't know. There's not been a precedent for that. Let me ask the pastor. Thankfully, the pastor said yes, and
Okay.
so this little guy, 6th grader, got baptized with his goggles on, and
So
it was
is there like
just, it was a fun day.
Is there a policy now? It's like it written in. You
Yeah, I
can
guess
or
so.
can't
Yeah.
use.
Well,
He set the trend.
I wish somebody had thought of that. So I was baptized at 5, and so my dad had a call to ministry right before that, and so he was doing some correspondence courses kind of thing back in the day at an extension center in Houston, and so his first baptism was going to be me. Well, he was a practical joker. He liked to, and one of the things, I couldn't swim. And I was terrified of being in water because I'd almost drowned myself a couple times, and I hated water going up my nose. So like the whole time I'm telling him, like, you're not gonna let water go up my nose, right? And like he'd thrown me a couple times in the pool. Like I remembered all this stuff, and even now, flashbacks. And so and we were good up until like the last second, as he's holding my nose and bringing me down.
Oh, no.
Something in my head, and my dad. So I didn't get these genes, but he was a big dude. He was a construction worker. He looked like it. Barrel chest, big arms. He's dunking me, and I've always been small. I freaked. And I grabbed the side of the plexiglass
Ooh.
Oh,
at the
no.
church. It's a little small country
Holding
church.
on for dear life.
Holding on for dear life, looking out, and he's starting. I mean, there's this fight happening.
Trying to
over
shove
trying
you
to bring me
in
up
the water?
there.
Wow.
And I think finally he got. He decided. I don't know. He just decided to take the win and just like I got the water. I think went right over here. Never went over my face and just let me up. And like by that time, everybody was laughing so hard nobody was paying attention. But
Close enough
It
to
was
immersion?
close
Yeah.
enough
Is that-
to
okay.
immersion,
Yeah.
and explains a lot of my personality as a Baptist.
Okay.
So,
It's a
There you
great
go.
story.
Yeah.
I love it.
I mean, my favorite baptism story, I had a similar experience where I had the guy too close to the plexiglass, and he was much taller than I anticipated, I think. And so I had him kind of centered, and as I took him back, I had to make a decision. I'm either going to just bang his head against the edge of this corner of the baptistry, or he's not going to be immersed. And so we got him, like, the top of his hair, which was spiked up, was still spiked up when he came up. And so as we're leaving, I just grabbed his head and kind of splashed water on him. Like, let's go. Close enough.
great.
So the Methodist church across the street loved it. So they still talk about it today. It's one of their favorites. No, I'm just
You're such a trendsetter.
Yeah, we're just doing our thing. So
All right. Well, let's jump in. What when you guys talk to people about NextGen, what do you think goes through their head? I've got my own ideas about what that is, and it may or may not be right, but it just I know it's a newer term.
Confusion?
Yes.
Not necessarily confusion.
Or just
all over the map.
Yeah, not much clarity. Like, what does this
Yeah.
mean for me?
Yes.
Kind of
Yeah.
response.
Yeah.
And I think we're getting closer to defining that, and maybe defining it of what it's not. It's not siloed ministries. It's not separating. Wouldn't you say, Kurt? Like, not just children's
Yeah, I think
ministry
that's the
and student
key.
ministry.
Yeah. And that's through the years, and some of it, Corey Liebram, our boss, helped me kind of figure some of this out years ago. And the first thing, we just began to pull leaders from those different areas together to try to figure out, okay, what does this look like? We worked well together, but we were very much running parallel, but separate. Mm-hmm. And so some of it was, okay, we don't know what else to do, so we'll just get together and try to figure out what does this look like from birth to launch, we call it, when a kid graduates high school. And how do we work together? And how do we pull parents and families and our overall staff into this? So, and I think that helped our people as we began to try to process some things and bring some things kind of public. There was some resistance from some of our folks who were mostly parents of teens, who it was almost this, it's just too late for us. Mm-hmm. So we'll keep doing what we do. It's great. You work on it on Jennifer's end of the spectrum. Go do that with the little guys, and we'll just raise them up. Mm-hmm. Was kind of the feel we had and experience we had. So it's interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think there's also a shift. I mean, we're wanting discipleship to happen in the family.
Yeah.
And that has not been happening. They've abdicated their role as spiritual leaders to the church. And so when we're talking about NextGen ministry and family ministry, we're saying, parents, we're partnering with you.
Yeah.
And you may have a parent that has a preschool or a childhood, a child, and then a student. How do we work with them that have all stages of those age-graded ministries?
Yeah, for years, I think the church said, send us your kids, we'll send them back, we'll fix them, we'll disciple them, we'll take care of them, we'll make them these great godly people, and we'll send them back to you, and we've taken care of it, we've done all the dirty work, you can stay out of the way. And then we've realized that model has not been effective. It didn't work. While there are some great spots in there and great people in there, I think overall, for one, biblically, you look at the biblical model, and the parent is the key to that. And so primarily, and some of that's really this kind of almost, caught, not taught idea that so much. I was actually at Jennifer's church on Sunday, and so Chris Wigley, their pastor at First Baptist Burleson, talked about some of that on Sunday. But even some of the stats, and you look at how students, children, so much of their faith formation, their spiritual formation, hopefully is going to take place in the home, but so much of that is parents modeling that and living that out, not necessarily going through some plan, but it really is dependent on the role of the parent. So that's a big part, is helping our families embrace that. And for the most part, I would say that parents are, that's a scary endeavor for most families because they never saw it.
Right.
Yeah.
And so they just don't know what to do because they've never seen it. And so in some ways, it's very foreign to parents and to families and to churches. And so part of that in our job is trying to figure out how do we walk beside families, but we're going to do that really through churches and church leaders, and hopefully a lot of one-on-one as well, but primarily with churches and leaders to help their church and their families and their students and their children figure that out.
So what I'm hearing is like NextGen is really a shift. You mentioned this earlier in our earlier discussion. It's a shift of the discipleship sheet.
That one too.
Yeah, that one too. NextGen ministry is a shift of the discipleship seat, or at least people's conception of where that's supposed to take place, moving from at the church to the home.
That's right.
Yes.
And then I'm hearing that there's more continuity between different age-graded ministries or in a church that are obviously going to scale depending on the size of the church. and then intentionality to it with a direction in mind. You know, that you're actually moving towards something in what you're teaching the kids and what you're wanting them to have at the end.
Yeah.
And so am I capturing that kind of succinctly?
Absolutely.
Absolutely, I would
Okay.
agree. Yes,
Okay.
and not acknowledging those milestones.
Yeah.
You know, when you have a child that goes from preschool ministry to elementary ministry, you know, celebrate that.
Yeah.
Especially that big milestone between children's ministry and youth ministry.
It's a big job.
You know, where they have another minister in their life. This youth minister should not be foreign to them. They should have already met this person. He should have been involved in, you know, their ministry. And so I think we can find creative ways in which we can integrate and work together, but that requires that children's minister and student minister to partner together with families.
What do y'all think the biggest challenge is right now with this shift in ministry design and focus? Obviously, there are different needs now
Sure.
than there have been historically. What do you think the biggest need is now for like the Gen Z younger and Gen Alpha in the church culture, church context?
I feel like there's a part of this, and we've seen it, I think, over multiple generations, but so much of this, our students, I would say, coming from a youth ministry's perspective, that our students don't want to hear about it. They don't want to just see it, or you tell them. Like, they want to touch it, and they want to be a part of it. They want to be able to embrace it and pour into it, but they want it to be something that matters. And I think that's key in these generations. Is it has to be something that matters to them. You know, some big blanket broad idea or something.
Yeah, so you're talking about their
around the
personal
world.
faith,
That's right.
their place within a congregation
Yeah.
is something that they want to own and embody and,
That's right.
and be hands-on involved.
Yeah, it's not, hey, you know, we're going to get you ready to do this one day. We need to be doing that right now.
Right.
And so how do we engage them in a way that enables them as they grow and as they form spiritually? That formation side is just so pivotal for the rest of their lives. But a part of this in the here and now is how do we help them embrace it where they are and kind of in the stage or phase of life that they're in. How do we navigate that in a way so that it really does connect to who they are and just their own development?
Yeah, I agree. It needs to be them owning their faith for themselves and not coming to church just because their parents are bringing them, you know. And how do we do that? I think sometimes we inadvertently teach at them. You know, we're throwing content at you. We want you to know these stories of the Bible. But what does this mean for you? You know, and I see Gen Z and Gen Alpha really saying, well, why does this matter? You know, tell me why this makes sense. And we need to allow them to be the church with us.
Yeah.
Don't wait until they're adults to give them a job to do. Let them be part of the church. Let them serve. Let them go on mission. You know, let them do things.
Yeah, this is something we're exploring. I'm part of a church plant that's about 3 years old, and most of our children, like 90% of them, are 10 and under. And then they're my
wonderful.
kids and a couple others that
Love
are
it.
like that are our burgeoning youth group. We've got we've got 3 13-year-old girls and or young women, and man, that's hard to say. But she's there. She's getting there. And then my 10-year-old, and so both my girls, and they're the older kids. But that's something we're trying to. We were very intentional about Ministry Save and making sure we've got all the right, and we've got a bunch of content and structures and policies shared with us that have been great. But it's figuring out that component that we're having to navigate kind of ahead of the rest of the congregation is like, how do we involve folks that are not yet at a place where we can just hand it off to them completely, but that kind of in-between phase of helping them be involved and hands-on. And so my oldest is a what do they call it? She's like a teaching assistant for the children's ministry, and so she's able to come in once a month and kind of shadow a teacher and be a junior helper, I think, or something like that. And then involve them in leading worship, a few things like that. But we're still trying to figure that out. Like, what does that look like?
I think one of the beautiful things I've seen, you know, as we visit churches, you know, I have seen children and students, you know, participating in worship, you know, reading scripture, saying a prayer, singing in the choir, you know, whatever it looks like for you. And to me, that is a beautiful expression of what we can be as an intergenerational church, as a next-gen church. as a family ministry church. You know, letting children be a part of all these things and letting them serve alongside us.
Yeah. I walked into church several years ago, and I walk in, and the door is opened by a student. And then I'm walking in. That was back when we did paper bulletins, and it was like a student handed me this, and I walk in, there's students on stage, there's students running cameras, all this stuff. And I look at the guy that was kind of hosting me, and I said, so is this almost like, is this a setup? Like, is this because we're here and because of what, kind of all that we're doing today, the focus? And he looked at me like I was crazy and said, what do you mean? And so I explained what I had seen, and he said, oh, no, it's just Sunday. I'm like, oh, okay. All right. Well, there you go.
Love
That's
that.
awesome.
And I thought, okay, what an interesting reality that church had embraced, that their students, I mean, he didn't notice anything. It wasn't different to him, but it was to me walking in. So,
and I think we need to be okay with them learning, They may not pronounce a word correctly when they read scripture. That's okay.
Yeah.
They may stumble, or they may not say the right name, so we need to give them those opportunities and show them the church that we are, and not hide them in a ministry in the back, where they can't be seen.
I know you guys do consulting or have consulted with churches or other staff, kind of helping with ministry. I've done consulting with churches. Kind of a weird question. If there was something like as consulting that you've seen or just observed, or maybe even a pet peeve, if there's something you're like, this ministry approach just needs to be retired. Like it's kind of run its course. What would that be, and what would you replace that with, if anything?
I feel like this almost goes back to the whole failure thing. Like, I can tell you a lot of things that you probably can't do that I've done that some of them have been retired. A lot of them have. That we killed it. I did it. So it's my fault. Yeah. But so I don't know.
That's a hard question.
What are you seeing?
It's a hard question. Something to be retired. I think it's more of an add to. You know, there are things we've done in the past that are still valid. Yeah. But adding to, letting mom and dad and grandma and grandpa and their children all worship together, or, do family events together. I'm really big on family events within the church. Okay. Family movie night, just different things. I used to do daddy-daughter banquets and, mother-son banquets, any reason to get people together. But you also have to have the mind of, what about that child that comes by themselves, you know? And it's family is defined differently. It's not just mom, dad, 2 children always. It could be grandma and a grandchild.
That's right.
It could be a single mom. It could be a child that just comes on their own. I was one of those kids that would come to church by myself, as a teenager. And so being a part of the family, we are a family as the church.
Yeah, that's good. And I think being okay part of it, you just have to be okay that, this is not whenever, like, sort of say 20 years ago. Okay, well, that doesn't feel as far back as it used to. But it just looks different. Our culture looks different. Yeah. But the church should be reflective of our communities, hopefully. And so some of that, let's just be honest about what our reality is and the reality around us. And we can't act like those things don't, that the church culture doesn't necessarily look like the rest of culture in so many ways. And so let's be honest about who we are and where we are, and let's embrace that and try to figure out how do we do life and how do we shepherd and take care of and walk alongside. And, sometimes that's pushing, sometimes that's pulling, sometimes they're doing that with us and helping us navigate that and figure that out. But I think, like you said, Jennifer, some of it's not necessarily maybe retiring it, but
so it's not an old Yeller situation.
No.
Yeah.
I know that's a reference that
there's a
whole
few
bunch of people are
things.
not going to get. But
we understand that reference. I get it.
Yeah. You don't have to
pretty
take it
traumatizing
out.
as a child watching that.
That's no lie. Yeah, Travis Elementary. I still remember in the cafeteria in the reel, it runs out of, and like, oh no, change the film. But I think some of it is just, are we evaluating it? Yeah. Are we looking at it? Are we trying to just to look at it with fresh eyes as best we can? And sometimes that's bringing other people in that maybe have not been a part of the conversation to try to get perspective, or people that are newer to our church. And that's been one of the things through the years, even in hiring. It's, okay, how do we bring in fresh eyes when we have this opportunity to hire? We want them to bring them with them, sounds weird. But we want their eyes on this thing. And so I tend to get in a good rut, and I at times like a good rut. And so, but I don't think for rut's sake. I love consistency. I think that's really important, but I can land on the hard end of that where it's like, maybe not. Or we've done this so long and we love it, but we're doing it because we love it instead of really evaluating it and try to figure out, is this reaching who we're trying to reach? Does this still fit and work for our students or our children or our families? And it may not be blowing the whole thing up. It may be we really need to tweak it, and we adjust some things. And I had some folks earlier this year say, well, what if that doesn't work? Okay, we'll punt, but let's try it. Let's see if we can do this better. And so I think some of that's just not being afraid to try the new and change.
I can't remember where this started with in church revitalization circles. It may have been Mark Clifton. It could have been Bill Hennard or Hennard. It's pronounced both ways. It depends where you're from in the South. But if your plastic plants on the stage look like they need to be watered, it's time to change them out. And so, like when you don't have that fresh perspective, you can't really see. It's almost like you walk past it and don't even recognize how outmoded or ineffective something is being. And so that's good stuff.
What a statement.
What can you give us a snapshot real quick of y'all have it's actually been newly developed, hasn't it? The NextGen team has been built within the last 18 months.
Yes.
And structured. How do y'all help local churches with that team? Like, how do y'all go about doing that?
Yeah, Conclave is a big part of it. We have made some shifts in Conclave the past couple of years. And basically we say we want you to bring your whole team, because we want the whole team and the pastor to hear the same thing. We need to collaborate together as a staff to meet the needs of our church. And we've seen such positive response from people who attend Conclave that go and debrief and talk about it, and it's just been amazing. So I think that is the direction that we're heading, and that's what we're modeling as a staff, because we don't work in isolation. We talk all the time. We collaborate. We brainstorm. We dream about what it looks like for our churches, and so it's definitely a team effort, not only here at the state but also within our churches.
Yeah, and I love that shift when I came on, or even as we began kind of those discussions primarily with Corey, as he moved into this new role of being the director of this team. One of the things he said to me was, really, I want us to primarily be generalists. So we're doing it all. Nice. But then really our secondary role is our, whatever it is, what area of the church we're specializing in. And I love that. And some of that because, for one, it gives us a broader lane, I think, to run in, which I think for me that's huge. But even watching Jennifer and Corey, and just seeing them and their heart and how they lead, I think it's just rich and it's incredible. And I hope that's really an encouragement to our churches, that, we're not just, okay, if you need this, go to this person, or that, go to this person. But really, I hope that's reflective in our leadership, but also in what churches begin to do and how they lead as well.
I know so many of our churches, I don't like the term small. I come from small church, and so I kind of, when organizations talk about small church, I get I have a chip on my shoulder. I like to think of it, these are our core churches.
That's
most churches in any
Absolutely
organization
right.
are going to be 75 and under. Average size, I think, is 60 or 50 now in the U.S. And so there are core churches, but many of those churches, just like statistically, are just... especially in this economy, you've got limited resources, you've got limited staff. What are some ways that they can be faithful and effective, kind of maybe wanting to incorporate some of these NextGen ministry ideas into their church? What's some practical advice you'd give a church in that space?
I don't think you always have to have a full-time staff member leading these ministries. Sometimes we see this in our certification groups. Sometimes it's that lay leader that says, I'm in charge of the children's ministry, or I'm doing the youth ministry, or we even see they're doing both.
Yeah.
you know, and so that's kind of where we come in, is we give them resources, but also introduce them to other people who are doing ministry like they're doing, you know, because it can be very isolating.
Yeah.
When you're at your church and you're the only one doing the children's ministry, and you don't have the background or the education, but you love children, you know, and so how do I do this? And so we're connectors on the state level. You know, if I see a church and that minister, I'm like, oh, you need to get to know so-and-so who's just the next city over. And then it just builds some camaraderie, and also another resource for them to, you know, just sit face to face and have conversation.
Well, as a small church pastor, like I was there, and also a PK, so my dad was as well. I heard you say certification, and I thought, okay, so if I have someone in my church who enjoys working with kids, but maybe they don't feel real confident in their ability or their skill sets, or even how to do that, what is the certification process? Can you share a little bit of that?
Sure, yes, certification. So it's designed for, it's a cohort model. It's designed for that minister who's new to ministry. Doesn't mean they don't have a degree in something.
Yeah.
Could be, we have people that have different degrees, you know, but they want to learn more about how to do children's ministry, and we give them the tools. But also, another great value is the community that they develop within that. And I know that's your heartbeat behind certification, if you want to address the community aspect of it.
I've only had the opportunity, I guess I sat in on 2 in the fall, this past fall, into 24, I think November, December. And then I was a part of, I guess, this last one just a couple weeks ago. But I've loved even what I saw in November and the change I've seen. Not necessarily a change, but you see a unity. You see that even when most of these meetings are happening, I guess, on Zoom, because you've got folks from all over the state. So, it's unrealistic.
So they're not having to come to Dallas.
Yeah, we want you to
Okay.
come here and sit around this table once a month.
Yeah.
That,
It's
we
not
can't,
possible.
Can't do that. But like, there was community that I saw, and I love that, because even as we were finishing up that last Zoom call, different people were saying, hey, can I call you about this? Or, hey, here's my number if anybody wants to talk about this. And so there's this beautiful relational kind of bond that had happened. And again, ministry can be so isolating.
Yes.
And you really feel like you're on an island sometimes. And so, man, to have a group of people, to have a network, to have your people, I think is profound for church leaders.
I agree. I have a story on that. So I've just finished my 3rd cohort. So we have a group, typically about 15 that are in the cohort. Cohort number 2, we invited to Conclave a couple years ago. And I set up a group text for them just so I could communicate, because Conclave's big and we're all going different directions, just so I could communicate. That cohort still communicates with each other.
Oh, wow.
Sometimes my phone is dinging all the time. And to me, I love that sound, because I'm like, they're communicating with each other. And I just get out of the way, because they are ministering to each other. Sometimes it's just, pray for me, I had a hard day. Or sometimes it's, what resource are you using for Wednesday night? I mean, it is the whole gamut. And this cohort number 3 is doing the same thing. And so it's like that was probably the biggest benefit of the cohort. I mean, they could have learned that knowledge on their own, read all their books on their own.
That's right.
But having that community and those people that you can call your cohort is very beneficial.
That's awesome. Well, for the uninitiated, we've used it several times. It's come up several times in the conversation. What is Conclave? Just for folks that, I know its reputation often precedes itself, right? What is it, just for those that might be listening?
Conclave's a 2-day event where really it used to be Youth Ministry Conclave. Several years ago it became Conclave NextGen, and so it really opened up to all these leaders who are doing NextGen ministry, including pastors. And so really it's this 2-day gathering. It's conference, it's breakouts, it's worship, it's community. And so this year we're meeting at First Baptist Arlington in October, and so I'm really excited about that Monday, Tuesday event. But really a ton of great training, and this was the first thing I ever went to as a youth minister in 1997, I believe. And I didn't have a clue. I was a 21-year-old college student, and I didn't know what I was doing. but I was trying to do it and figure it out. And so Conclave just gave me tools, but it also gave me people. It's different than certification because you don't have that connection, but I met a lot of people, and then year after year seeing more and more people. But I just got some really great training and encouragement through Conclave. It's an event I love.
So I've got a really tough question for you. Okay,
Yeah.
so I want you to think of a children's ministry youth group. What group game do you secretly love or hate?
Egg blow? You ever done an egg blow?
No.
No.
What
You
is that?
take a clear piece of tubing. It has to be, a pretty good diameter. I don't know, maybe an inch. Ideally, clear is good because you can see the egg. So you crack an egg, put it in, use a funnel, get it in there, and then two people, a person on either end, and you count to three, and they just start blowing. So you're putting pressure on either side of that egg, and at some point, someone's going to lose, and they have egg on their face. So that has always been one of my favorite games. But I was at a camp one time. It wasn't me. It wasn't my church. A group was doing that, and a kid passed out. Fell, and they landed on a rock on their head.
No.
And they had to take
Do
him to the
not try
hospital.
it at home.
Yeah,
Don't try
that's
it at
why
home.
it's like, okay, maybe not the best game, but
Insurance companies now making note of that.
it was great. Like 3 or 4 stitches. The kid was great. So, and they were not bothered. That kid won. So
Yeah.
that was the good
Okay.
part.
Noble
and then,
effort there.
Then they lost the stitches and the bill.
If you could give a one-sentence practical takeaway, what's one thing every listener could do this week to invest in the next generation?
Build relationships. Get to know mom and dad, siblings. Get to know them. Go to their games. Go show up outside of church. Be there for them and be that person that is. So they can call you. That's my children's
that's it.
minister. That's my youth minister. To where they just don't see you on Sunday and Wednesday, but that you're a part of their life.
Awesome.
Yeah, champion the family.
Yeah.
But show up, be there, and don't see yourself just for that student, but invest in those parents. And sometimes that's the more challenging relationship. But also, if we're going to connect and reach a family, boy, if we can connect there, it's going to make a big difference.
Cool deal. All right. Well, thank you for joining us here at Ministry Conversations. And any of the information that we've talked about will be in the show notes if you need more info on that and links to some of the resources we've talked about. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks.
Thank
Really
you.
am.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Ministry Conversations. Ministry Conversations is made possible through your giving to the Texas Baptist Cooperative Program. Have a topic you want to hear about? Let us know by emailing news@texasbaptist.org.